Hi everybody, it's Amy from Savor Salvage Scent, and welcome back to my channel, which focuses on culinary adventures, home and DIY projects, and last but not least, my fragrance collection and obsession. So today I thought I would continue on and round out a series focused on the oldest perfumes in my collection, or perfumes that have stood the test of time. Which I thought would be interesting context for us right now as we are kind of going through some trying times. So focusing on fragrances that have endured. So the third oldest fragrance in my collection is Chanel, the famous Chanel No. 5 perfume. And it was created first in 1921 by an artist named Ernest Beau. He was introduced to Gabrielle Coco Chanel, the couturier or clothing designer, and she was looking originally to actually not to create for her own store, but to give these as to give a perfume as a gift for the holidays to the most important 100 clients of hers. So she met him and told him that she wanted him to create a super modern fragrance, something that smelled really bright and clean, like even I think she went as far as to say like freshly pressed linens. So something really modern. Ernest Beau had a background where I believe he grew up in Russia, and I think he was living in Moscow at the time that they met. His older brother was a famous perfumer and basically designed perfumes for their aristocracy. So they were introduced, she and Ernest Beau, and she asked him to create this new modern perfume. And my understanding is that he came to her for her to smell a variety of things he had created both in the past and then more recently for her, and presented her with 10 different vials, and they were numbered, and she ended up choosing number 5. And part of that was because 5 was her favorite number. She tended to release her designs on the 5th day of the 5th month of each year, and so she chose vial number 5. And just to give you a little background, he presented, these varied, let's say, things to choose from. But the reason she chose this is because of a specific element that made it really have this fresh, clean smell. And we'll get to that in a minute. So the bottle. I'm going to mostly focus on the perfume bottle. This has become such a famous perfume. I think has been considered one of the top 5 perfumes, I believe, almost every year since it was released. Again, it was given first as a gift to her clients. It became so popular, though, that they released it in her stores in 1922. The bottle looked very, very much like this originally. It did go through some minor changes, like I think it had a more shallow cap. The shoulders were a bit more rounded, but for the most part, this is pretty much what it looked like. There are many versions or different varieties, different things that you can get scented like Chanel No. 5 now. So I have here the Perfume, I have the Eau De Toilette, and I'll get to, there are some subtle differences between them. And then this is what they call a flanker, which is kind of like a version of an original that might have a twist. And this came out just a few years ago, No. 5 L'Eau, and L'Eau in French means water. So it's got an even brighter, fresher quality. And I think, it's just a modern interpretation on No. 5. So let's talk about what's inside. So the first notes that you get, the top notes, the most important is a chemical, what they call an aldehyde, and I'm going to get to what that is in a minute. So aldehydes, lemon, bergamot, so really bright, cheerful scent, and again, looking for that brightness or cleanness that she's looking for. The middle notes, kind of the heart notes, are really, I would say, expensive and quality ingredients. So things like jasmine, which is one of the most expensive things to distill. May rose, it's a particular kind of rose that is still made only in Grasse in France. And it is only harvested for 3 weeks during May each year, and it's exquisite, so really valuable. And then I think lily of the valley and iris in heart notes. And then in the base notes are things that are, I would say, really incensey. So things like vanilla, amber, patchouli. I am going to spray this majesty in my person and give you a reaction. So there are, I think, over 80 ingredients in Chanel No. 5, but what makes it so different and so groundbreaking? Well, aldehydes, so aldehyde is probably one of the most prominent things. It's a chemical compound, but wasn't originally a chemical compound. Aldehydes are in organic materials like, lemon and orange rind. I think it's in rose petals. I think it's in like cinnamon bark and a few other things. But in its natural state, it has this like sparkling, effervescent quality that's almost like that, like the feeling you get with champagne, or again the feeling you get with like when you freshly cut a lemon or an orange. So it has this like quality that like basically goes whoosh off the skin. So aldehydes were first created chemically, I think in 1905, and were used in perfumes, a few perfumes, until Chanel 5. But they were used in such a minor way that they really didn't make an impact or statement in the same way. Some people say it was a mistake. I'm not so sure. That the perfumer Ernest Beau, who created this, 1% of the compound of 80 some ingredients was aldehydes. And so it really, really made a statement. And aldehydes, when you kind of get to know them, there are very different kinds of chemical aldehydes. They do all have that kind of sparkling quality, but they all have different kind of versions too still. Like some of them smell more like peach, some of them smell more like lemon, and then a few of them smell, interestingly, like a candle just being blown out. So like a bit of a waxy quality, powdery quality, with a little bit of like a smoky quality. So I think because of that, Chanel No. 5 has kind of an old school feel in some ways. Like it smells kind of like, again, an old burned out candle. It still has this bright effervescent quality, and then it has those base notes that are also very incensey and ambery. And just, you know, this is, I find people either love No. 5 or they hate it. I love it. I think it's just, it smells so rich and so deep, but still has that very inventive, sparkling quality. It's hard to describe it until you smell it, but it's, I think, so innovative. So what are the things do we think that have made this last or be so popular for over 100 years? Or 100 years next year, actually, 100 years. So for one, again, I think it's the really inventive bottle and the name. These were really modern and still are, I think, so modern. So originally this was, I'm not sure if I mentioned, was to be designed to kind of look like a liquor bottle or a men's toiletry case. And so it was to have really, really clean lines and to really show off the juice inside. And so I think it still remains so modern. It's so different. It's so iconic. You know, there's a reason that Andy Warhol painted these bottles, I think, or these bottles. I think it's such an interesting, iconic, modern, clean shape. I think it hasn't hurt that many famous people have worn No. 5 over the years. So, for instance, Catherine Deneuve was, you know, one of the first to advertise for it. But also, you know, Marilyn Monroe once was quoted when asked what she wore to bed. She said, well, nothing but a few drops of Chanel No. 5. Things like that have certainly helped. And I think, you know, again, it's the quality. So something that I would say really sets quality houses or quality scents off is the richness of what's used. So for instance, it's really expensive to extract jasmine flower and to have somebody create chemical compounds and to use May rose, which has an exquisite scent but is really hard to get. So it's not cheap, you know, it's not a cheaply made perfume. You can still, I would say, be a bargain shopper, which I am, and find these sometimes on eBay, etc. But these are never going to be a bargain, $20 buy. Like at a bargain, these are going to cost anywhere from, gosh, I think I paid $50 for this. I think it's originally $150, and these range from like $100 to $200 or $300, I think, depending. But when you think of the quality, I wear this, oh my gosh, I wear this probably of all my collection. It's probably in my top 5. I wear it a lot, and it just sets me in a certain way, and it's so rich and exquisite and has such an interesting story. I just love wearing it. So I think that, you know, its history and design, its modernism that has lasted the test of time, and its quality, those all lend themselves to it being something that endures. So I would love to know more from you about, do any of you wear number 5, or any Chanel scents are your favorites? I would love to know. Secondly, if you could create a chemical compound for something in the natural world, what would it be? For instance, something that I wish that I could make is the smell of a fresh cut lilac. So for some reason, where some flowers can be extracted and their scents can be distilled into a scent, lilac flowers cannot be. It doesn't work. And so anything that you smell that's supposedly lilac is a chemical interpretation. I have yet to find one that smells exactly like fresh cut lilac. So that would be my dream. And then lastly, I would love to know, if you could perfume an experience, what would you perfume? So mine, a simple one, but something that I love to do for me, would be to visit Brooklyn, Greenpoint in Brooklyn, and to go to McCarran Park Pool and sit in the sun at the pool. And that's what my experiential scent would be. I would love to hear from you, and I can't wait to talk to you next week. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.